Imagine a world where you're nearing the age of retirement. You've not only worked hard for your entire life, but you're also smart enough to save and invest your money so that one day you'd be able to retire comfortably, travel the world, and spend more time with your family. And this resulted in you having the amount of money that Investopedia recommends you have for retirement, which is 8 times your annual salary by the age of 67. But in this world, the government has total control over every single penny in your bank account, credit cards, and even that $60 balance you have in your PayPal. But most importantly and scariest of all, they have 100% control of your retirement accounts. In fact, this world, as you may know, is already here. Countries such as China have not only been implementing a centralized bank digital currency for a while now, but they've also incorporated expiration dates for their digital dollars to force their citizens to spend money during times when the economy needed to be stimulated. And of course, we know what happened in Canada as protesters had their bank accounts frozen during the mist and the heat of the truck driver protests. So as we're currently staring down the possibility of all of that happening here, right here in the United States, well, the question we gotta ask is, how is that going to affect our everyday financial lives, especially our retirement? Well, my friends, that's the question we'll be answering today. Now, aside from watching my Chicago Bears absolutely destroy the San Francisco 49ers, I just spent the whole weekend virtually watching every video about central bank digital currency and its potential effects. And a lot of these videos did an amazing job at telling us what this is and what will most likely happen. But the question I immediately jumped to was, how will this affect some of the most important aspects of our financial lives? And quite honestly, one of the first things I thought of was how this will affect our retirement accounts. Because imagine if the government came out and said that all the money you save for retirement over the course of decades was all of a sudden completely worthless because of this new digital dollar. And the truth is, this affects you whether you're 65 or you're 25. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start talking about how the CBDC will affect our financial lives and ultimately our retirement. Now, before we go any further, for those that may not know, a centralized bank digital currency is a digital dollar issued by a central bank that would replace existing currencies in place, such as the US dollar. I mean, just imagine Bitcoin, but just without the good stuff, like the fact that it's decentralized and it's controlled by us, the people, not any authoritarian entity. And despite what many may say, the idea of a CBDC being implemented across the world isn't too far off. In fact, if you look at this map, the countries in teal, pink, or green, which total 51 countries, have already committed to implementing a CBDC by being at a minimum in the development process. And as you can see, the United States is right there at the cusp of being number 52 in the list of countries that have committed to a centralized bank digital currency. Because even back in March of this year, the White House released an official statement with Joe Biden signing an executive order to start prioritizing the research and the development of a US-based centralized bank digital currency. And a part of that read, the order directs the US government to assess the technological infrastructure and capacity needs for a potential US CBDC in a manner that protects Americans' interests. Which, on a side note, the White House just announced that they're switching the definition because, hey, that's how it works nowadays. You can switch the definition of any word that's been used for many, many years. Words such as recession or woman, you can change the definition to whatever you want it to be. Because when they say in a manner that protects Americans' interest, it seems that they changed the definitions of Americans from us, the actual citizens of the United States, to the government. Because based on all my research on this US-based CBDC, that's what this seems to be. Now, if you're a subscriber of this channel and you've watched our videos before, first off, thank you. But you know that I typically present my points with facts, figures, visual aids, and metaphors, but honestly, I'm just gonna call a spade here. This CBDC project that the Biden administration is working on is nothing more than a way for our government to have complete control over our lives. Because typically those that control the money control everything. In fact, I want to direct your attention to this article written by Norbert Michael on the Forbes platform. Norbert brings up the good point that the implementation of a US-based CBDC will most likely involve monetary policy being completely changed. Now, before you click off this video because I used a fancy word, let me break it down for you really quickly. At the end of the day, monetary policy is just a terminology for increasing and decreasing the supply and how money flows in our economy. And it's mainly revolving around the Federal Reserve, which I'm assuming most of us know what that is. And the point that Norbert makes is that if we incorporate a US-based CBDC in our monetary policy, in his words, it's right there in plain sight, shrinking balances in CBDC accounts to implement negative interest rates. In other words, central banks will take money out of people's accounts to conduct monetary policy. Which, hey, you know how we have all this high inflation? I know how to solve it. We're gonna take money out of people's accounts because we now have the ability to do that. Which now that brings us to our main point. How would a CBDC affect our retirement accounts? Because I do believe that's where it will have the most impact. Reason being is that if you look at all the demographics across the board, retirees would be hit the hardest. In fact, for a second, let's ignore the fact that retirees spent decades saving one currency, which is the dollar, only to have it be completely replaced by something else. Or that retirement accounts will probably be the first thing that governments go after in implementing a CBDC. But the main reason I'm looking at is that retirees are at a point in their lives where they're no longer able to produce any more income for themselves. And not only that, but based on what we read from the Forbes article referenced earlier, the possibility of money being taken out of people's retirement accounts for the sake of the greater good is starting to become more and more real. I mean, you're talking about people that are reliant on the money they saved their whole life in order to survive, and rightfully so. However, if everything that they're reliant on is all of a sudden out of their control, well, that's putting every retiree, which, by the way, we have the largest generation of retirees right now, in a very vulnerable position. But aside from that, now let's talk about everyone by addressing this from the standpoint of the Great Reset. Because imagine if you're restricted from buying meat and the only foods in which your digital dollar will be able to purchase are deep fried bugs and synthetic foods. Or if you weren't able to buy gas for your car because the people in your state have reached the limit on how much gas can be pumped for the month. All for, of course, being mindful of climate change and making sure we're all going green. But the harsh and serious reality is that in that position, the government would be able to come up with any reason for being able to control what you can and can't purchase with your very own money. And what's really sad is that for the next 3, 6, 9 months, the authorities at B will try everything and anything to try and tempt the masses to get on board with this. In fact, someone at this point may ask, but Daniel, why shouldn't we have a digital dollar? Wouldn't that help stop the dollar from crashing and it'll stabilize the economy? Now, for one, this is the most commonly used argument as to why we need a quote-unquote digital currency. And with that argument, many will point out that gold for many years has been a major staple in protecting against inflation. In fact, according to Goldco, gold's performance during periods of high inflation, such as the stagflation of the 1970s, has confirmed its reputation. During that decade, gold's average annualized gains were over 30%. Whereas inflation topped out at 11. And sure, that's certainly a strong argument, but if you look at the way gold in a CBDC is valued, they're completely off, and gold would be way too volatile over a typical 8 to 12 year market cycle for it to support a stable economy. For example, check out this chart of what gold prices were even just the last 5 years, with a low of $1,389.43 and a high of $2,253.63, which would be the equivalent of having a 5-year inflation rate of 61.5%. I mean, imagine trying to draw up 10-year treasury bonds with those type of numbers. It would simply be too volatile for it to be the primary currency for the United States, and it wouldn't encourage the masses to buy into it. And that's what leads me to my prediction on what will happen with the US domestic CBDC and our retirement account. And truth be told, based on the information we have now, on paper, a US CBDC wouldn't affect our retirement as much as we fear. However, it's more so that this is being used to obtain more control over us. It's the fact that the government would have the ability to do it. But of course, the question remains, how do we stop it? And the answer, my friends, is simple. Don't buy into it. Because the reality is that more and more people are starting to realize what's really happening. And the likelihood of a CBDC being interwoven into our day-to-day lives will hopefully get lower and lower. But of course, hope is never the best strategy. So if you feel this information is useful, especially in getting others to not buy into a potential CBDC issued by Uncle Joe, then I'd love for you guys to share this video. And aside from that, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you guys think about all this happening? And of course, like this video and subscribe to our channel for more information. And until next time, my friends, I'll see you in the next one.